And let's welcome in today's roundtable. Joining us today, we have Republican strategist Bradley Blakeman. He's also a former senior staff advisor to President George W. Bush. And also joining us, David Goodfriend, former deputy staff secretary under President Bill Clinton. Gentlemen, thanks for joining us today. We're going to get to some calls here in just a moment. But we've heard a lot from the Trump campaign, Paul Manafort and Trump himself out there saying, we're going to do this on the first ballot, 1237. We're going to get there, not really talking about a contingency plan, not really talking about ways they can get these delegates under their umbrella before the convention. Bradley, let me first go to you. Do you think this is a wise strategy for the Trump campaign to say, hey, we're going to do this on the first ballot, or we're probably not going to do it at all?
They have no choice. Donald Trump is all about bravado. He's all about being number one. And if he were to have any wiggle room at all, it would be seen as defeatist. And that's not in Donald Trump. So I find it just by the Trump playbook that Paul Manafort and others would say he's going to do this on the first ballot, because anything else would be defeatist. And that's just not Donald Trump's style.
David, what do you think?
Well, I think we live in interesting times, and I think the Republican convention may be one of the most fascinating conventions, frankly, since the Democrats in 1968. It's almost the mirror image. But I tend to agree with Brad that Donald Trump doesn't really have a choice in what he says his strategy is. What I think is a little bit more telling for Democrats like me is that both Trump and Cruz poll very similarly in the general election matchup against either Hillary Clinton or Bernie Sanders. And what that means is the only way there's a true game change for the Republicans is if they get a nominee who is not Donald Trump or Ted Cruz. And that, I think, is highly unlikely. So even though there's a lot of machinations going into the convention and we're wondering whether it'll have the threshold number of delegates, from my standpoint, looking ahead to the general election, the outcome is still going to be pretty much the same in terms of a matchup against the Democratic nominee.
But Brad, isn't that kind of what Kasich and his people are banking on, that there is a contested convention?
There's no money in the Kasich bank. I mean, the rules as they're written now, Kasich wouldn't even qualify to be on the ballot for consideration. They'd have to change the rules to do that. So I don't know what Kasich's game is other than maybe to block and tackle Trump, which may work to get Trump denied the 1237, which means that Trump must get it at the convention. Because remember, the free agents now, those delegates that were committed to other candidates who have left, aren't going to be able to exercise their muscle, if you will, until the first ballot. So there are a lot of machinations to happen, and I don't see Kasich in any of those choices.
Well, Bradley, you talked about the bravado of the Trump campaign. Is this also in some ways an admission that they were outgained by the Cruz campaign, and it's too late to really make up a lot of the ground game delegate problems that they've been dealing with over the last couple of weeks and trying to rectify?
There's no doubt they were late in their organization, but I don't think they're too late, because there's a long time to go. We have lots of primaries to be had. Remember, California is not until, May 3rd, I think. So he's got a lot of time to make up. And, of course, our convention is not until July.
Right.
So, look, I think, yeah, where they were late, they were flat-footed. But now they seem to be getting the right people on board, and we're seeing that there's an upheaval now in the Trump campaign, which better happen now before the convention. So I think late, yes. Too late, no.
David, I want to ask you how big, because everyone's projecting that Donald Trump is going to win and that Hillary Clinton's going to win, but how big of a win does Donald need tonight?
Well, the sort of rule of thumb that I've heard is in the neighborhood of 50%. But I have to tell you, and I hope Brad will back me up on this, we can really get caught up in the horse race aspect of this, but I think it's really important for people to take notice of how many Americans feel disaffected with the political system. And I'm saying this for Democrats as well. How many of those Democrats are voting for Bernie Sanders? I'm a Hillary supporter, but I think it'd be really dangerous for both political parties to somehow try to marginalize those Americans who are expressing a very understandable disillusionment with politics. Instead, we should be thinking of ways to try to make the political system adapt to include them. And by that, I don't mean like change the convention rules in retrospect. The rules are what they are. The nominating process is what it is. I'm saying going forward into the general election, it's my hope that whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, we make the effort to get these people who've come out to say they're fed up with the system into the tent rather than push them out.
It's interesting because, there has been a lot of attention drawn to this campaign this year because of Donald Trump and because of Bernie Sanders and the movements that they have supported. And more people are tuned in to the process. And I think this is a big learning exercise for a lot of people. Learning about super delegates, learning about the convention rules, learning about the RNC and the 68 members that can change everything, or 168 members, whatever it is. It makes a big difference. And I think if everybody's so fed up, one of the redeeming qualities of this campaign might very well be that people have learned so much about how the sausage is made. And they can make those changes the next time it comes around, David.
And if I could just toss this in, not many people know this, but perhaps the most famous Republican of all, Abraham Lincoln, so-called Honest Abe, the way he got nominated was his political operatives printed counterfeit tickets to the Republican convention to get their people in the door. Now, you may not like the process, you may not like the way the sausage is made, but it's always been sausage making.
Right.
And I think we ought to open our eyes and say, okay, it's like Winston Churchill said, democracy is the worst form of government except for all
the other ones.
So
Absolutely
let's get with it and participate.
All right, we're going to flip the script a little bit. We're going to talk about Bernie and Hillary, and we're going to ask this question to Bradley. Who would you rather have the Republican nominee run against? Weaknesses, strengths? We're going to talk about that coming up. Gentlemen, stand by.
We want to ask you, those of you who are watching, to give us your opinion. Call us right now. The number is 877-NEWSMAX. Again, that's 1-877-639-7629. What do you think? Who would Republicans rather face, Hillary Clinton or Bernie Sanders? Let us know. You're watching Newsmax Now. We'll be right back.
All right, welcome back. Bradley Blakeman and David Goodfriend. And Bradley, we'll start with you. Who would you rather run against, or have your candidate run against, Hillary or Bernie?
Bernie. The reason why is because Bernie's a socialist masquerading as a Democrat. He would be an easy target. He's getting a lot of attention, but at the end of the day, I don't think the American people are ready to surrender our country to a socialist president. I think he'd be the best hope for the nomination of the Democrats to lose to Republicans.
All right, let's welcome in a caller now, and then David, we'll get your response to what our caller Deborah has to say. Deborah, go ahead. Who would you rather have the GOP nominee run against, Hillary or Bernie?
Well, I disagree with the speaker just before me, because I believe that if Bernie did win, he would win to become president, because his facts, his history, 28 years as a senator, has spoken very loudly and clear. So has Hillary. If you want Trump to win, unfortunately, pick Hillary, because Hillary will lose against Trump, because I believe Americans are tired of old school politics, and they want something fresh and new, like Bernie. Trump is loose cannon. People are going crazy voting for him because they are so sick of politics, but so sick of it that they're going way far to some extremist attitude voting for Trump, I believe, because Trump is no way, I believe, has any record of anything to be able to help us as Americans with the world.
All right, interesting viewpoint. And what's interesting, too, is I hear this from so many people, David, and it goes to your point that we were speaking about earlier. So many people are so fed up. And I hear folks who say, I kind of like Bernie, but I think I'm going to go with Trump, or I really like Trump, but I'm thinking about maybe even going with Bernie. What do you think about our caller's last response, if you could hear it, David?
Yeah, I could hear her fine, and I appreciate her remarks. I mean, listen, one of the reasons that I'm a Hillary supporter, I'm a Democrat, and I want a Democrat to be in the White House next year. And I think that Hillary Clinton has got, a lot of faults, but she's a proven commodity up against the big guns of big money opposition. She's weathered the storm. And I don't really know, because we've never seen Bernie Sanders getting hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars of money spent against him to tear him down. We simply don't know how he would stand up under that barrage. I have a better sense that Hillary can take a punch, because after all, Trey Gowdy, Newt Gingrich, lots of others have tried to take her down and failed. So from a Democratic standpoint, from somebody who wants to see a Democrat in the White House, I'll take Hillary as the best chance to withstand what we know is going to be a very ugly barrage against our nominee.
All right, let's welcome in our next caller. We have Ken from Illinois calling. And Ken, who do you think has a better chance of losing to the Republican nominee, Hillary or Bernie?
I think Hillary does.
And why is that?
Well, I just don't think that she is a very reliable person. I really think the FBI is going to nail her on these allegations they got against her in that with the FBI on her Secret Service deal and that. I just think she's a very nasty person. And when she's asked direct questions, she hee-haws around on it and twists it with another deal, like with a question, or just completely evades the question. And I don't think she may be Democrat Party in that, but she's a spoiled brat from Chicago. She was born and raised a radical Republican. I just think that she's not worth 2 cents. And I think she's got the American people that are Democrats, hardcore Democrats. I think she's going completely against all American standards. And that.
Ken, thank you for your call. I think Hillary might disagree with the radical Republican characterization, but Bradley, let's go to you on this. We just heard from Ken there, and David will tell you that Democratic voters do not care about this email server scandal. It doesn't resonate with them. Republican voters do, but when it gets to the general election, do you think she's vulnerable on this, more vulnerable than some might realize?
Well, we already know Democrats have weighed in on this. There are a lot of Democrats who don't think she's trustworthy or even
trustworthy is different.
That's totally different. Like the likability, trustworthiness, completely different issue.
But that's important because you have to like somebody and trust somebody before you ever get to vote for them and consider their policies. So she's at a deficit in likability and trust. That is the coin of the realm for a presidential candidate. And with regard to the caller from Illinois, you know, the reason why I'm saying Bernie is because I happen to believe as a lawyer, she's in real jeopardy of being indicted. And if she wins the FBI caucus, there's no way she's going to continue. And if you think the Republicans are in turmoil, you haven't seen nothing yet. When and if Hillary is indicted, what do the Democrats do now? They'll never support Bernie. There'll have to be somebody coming in from the wings to save the Democratic Party.
I don't know. I can almost believe they'll act like nothing happened, maybe. But David, last word to you, about 20 seconds left.
Sure. I mean, look, I know it would make my friend Brad Blakeman a very happy man if the FBI were to indict Hillary, but I think we're going to know within a matter of weeks whether or not that happens. My bet is that it does not, because we actually have seen in the past all the facts trotted out. You had 11 hours of testimony in front of Trey Gowdy's committee. It didn't amount to a hill of beans. So I don't think they've got the case. I don't think they'll bring it, but we can put that all behind us come the end of May. And then we can look ahead to some of the other things we talked about. I mean, I know my Republican friends.
We'll have to leave it there, David.
Brad Blakeman, David Goodfriend, thank you, gentlemen, for joining us. Pleasure to have you. And we'll be right back.